Okay, Lisa, I think we are on. So let's do this. Welcome, everybody, to the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. I am your host, Mark Ross, and with me today is Miss Lisa Poole. She's from the UK. So
Hello,
she's
everyone.
she's on the Late Show, guys. She is on the Late Show.
Mhm.
Uh, Lisa, you are a mental health dietitian.
I am, yes.
Okay. Can you before we get into this, just break down what that means to be a mental health dietitian?
Yeah, so you've got the skill set of a dietitian that everyone thinks a dietitian is like the food police and they're going to tell everyone what they should and shouldn't eat. But then you've got the complexity of mental health. So working in mental health, that can range anything from people with eating disorders. So that's anorexia nervosa, bulimia, binge eating disorder. You've also got the new ones that are arising now, like ARFID and just like basic disordered eating where there's sensory concerns. You've then got an element of psychosis,
Mm.
schizophrenia. So it all really plays a big part. And whether there's medication involved or whether there is the illness, that's when a dietitian plays a key part to be able to support the individual so that their physical health is the best that it can be.
Mm. So I guess it's suffice to say that it's true that you are what you eat.
Very true. Very true. And what you don't eat. So again, like with
Yeah, yeah.
anorexia, if you don't eat anything, unfortunately, it can lead to death. So yeah,
Mm.
yeah, very true. You are what you eat.
Hmm. Or not, because
Yeah.
you have the anorexia, which means you're expelling food and nutrients out of your body. And now that we're talking about that particular, can I call it a disease
I think they call it more like a disorder.
or a disorder?
Like, yeah, yeah. Again, yeah, I suppose anorexia is a disease. Yeah, it's very lethal. I mean, as I say, it can result to death. So yeah.
Hmm.
And people live with it. They can live with it for many, many years if they don't get the right treatment.
Right. So why? I've always wondered why people do that.
Mm.
So can you explain for those that don't know what would push a person to eat and then expel it, or just deny themselves food altogether?
That's a really good question because I think before I went into eating disorders, I was very similar to what the general public think is surely it's just something about food and how whether you eat it or whether you don't. But there's so much more to it. The mental complexities of it is so entrenched. And it can range anything from what we're seeing is it could be traumas. So it could be anything from parents separating and divorcing when you're young. It
Mm.
could be bullying at school. It could be bullying as an adult. It could be something like a car accident. Um, and then it could be anything like we're seeing a lot of like neurodivergence now. So whether they've got ADHD or autism, it's like another way of expressing their complexities. So there's so many different types of traumas that can impact someone's eating. We tend to see that some people might, if they are stressed or they're feeling low self-esteem, they might binge because it's like a coping mechanism, or we get some other people that they think that they're not worthy enough of food and that they don't deserve food, so then they completely restrict. You've got other types of disorders that I didn't mention. It's called RISH, so it's reduced intake. What's it called? Reduced intake stress. It's like a way of that they're causing harm to their self by reducing their intake. And so again, that is like a self-inflicting harm. So there's so many different ways that it can influence someone's intake.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Um, I've never met anyone who went through that,
Mm.
that either one. I've
Mm.
never, encountered anybody that dealt with that, and I was always curious as to why that happens. And you
Mm.
mentioned that it could be a number of traumatic reasons,
Mm.
primarily for that to occur,
Mm.
and they take
Mm.
their frustrations out on food or on themselves. So
Yeah. Mm.
yeah.
It's their coping mechanism. So a lot of the things that we learn in life, isn't it, is like learned behaviors. So it's like if we're stressed, some people might go and get an alcoholic beverage, some people might go for a walk, and
Sure.
then other people might just restrict their intake or they might overeat. So it's just a learned behavior to try and numb the pain, numb the voices, numb the trauma. So yeah, it is a big coping mechanism, but then it can lead to quite detrimental impacts on an individual's health.
Mhm. Mhm. And speaking of mental health, I know we talked before, and you mentioned that your father, who's a veteran, dealt with mental health issues, and your daughter.
Mm,
Uh, could you care to elaborate on that? Because I know that mental health takes a toll on everybody, not just the
mm.
person. It takes a toll on everybody. And growing up with a military dad, I know that that in itself can take a
Yeah,
toll on you.
yeah.
So talk
Y-
about your dad and your daughter.
Yeah, so with my dad, I was 4 when my dad went and fought in the Falklands War. He was on a ship that got blown up. And so as he described it, like they shut all the hatches down, and because he was in sonar, he had to crawl out and try and get somewhere else. He
Mm,
was up on deck, and I think it was again, I think this is where the voices started. He was saying that he was due to get a helicopter to be rescued, and unfortunately, the helicopter got blown up. So he then had to wait for a lifeboat. So he's like telling me all these traumas, like at the age of 4, and I think he felt that it was best to try and voice it, to try and bring the family together and to try and express how he was feeling. But also along the lines where I was 4 in the UK, I was just starting what we call infant school. So I was like my first year at school, is ever starting school. And I used to live on like naval estates, so where
mm,
naval married quarters, and
yeah.
it would be, I don't know whether it's like that in the US, but like all the mums would be out on the green talking, and all the kids would be running around while the men are out to what war, whatever they're doing. And
Back in the
so
day, probably was, yeah. Yeah.
and so unfortunately you get the mums talking, and unfortunately one of the children misheard a conversation, and what it was that someone's father had unfortunately died in the war, but that was misconstrued that it was my father that had died in the war. So I was told this, and then I think that's when my shock initially like started. It was like, wow, I've gone from having my dad playing with him to then being told that he's not here anymore. And I think where I was such a young age, I didn't really remember much. All I remember is that they, the teachers at the school, when my mum got my dad to phone from the Falklands War or the Falklands to so that I could hear his voice, so that to reassure me that he was still here. Um, but I think by that point, I think the trauma and the stress had already sunk in, and I don't remember any of that conversation. And then when he came back, I remember him saying to me, I wasn't the same person as what I was when he went away. And then I think over time, he received so much support. I've never known anyone to have so much support from the National Health Service. So he had psychiatrists, he had counselors, he had psychologists, he had so many different types of medications. He had respite, what they provide for veterans. But I don't know whether his mindset, I mean, I never know completely, but nothing seemed to work. And so he would continue to take dramatic steps, like he would try and take his life with overdoses. He would go
Mm,
and threaten healthcare professionals. He'd try
mm,
to drive his vehicle into a wall. And all this time, you just try and get on, don't you? You think, okay, this is my dad, we're having a down episode. Let's try and keep on. And it's not until you get older and you actually think, my gosh, what we went through, what we
Hmm.
actually went through. And I
Mm.
think for myself, I was a teenager when it really like came to the surface. And my mum and my sister received the appropriate counseling, psychotherapy, and things like that. But I was at the age where it was like, it's not cool to see a therapist. So I just completely
Right.
refused. I
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
refused it. And so
Yeah.
I completely went off the rails in a different way. So I
Yeah.
abused alcohol,
Yeah.
my mood. I was quite depressive. And I think it like really, really had an impact on me still to this day that it's like again it's like trying to process it all, do you know, some days
Hmm.
they come back and other days they don't, and
Hmm.
I'm just like wow, that whole experience. I joke and I make light of it and I say to people it's like a soap opera. It's like that's the only way that I can explain it, and I think I'm trying to make light of it so that I can process it and deal with it.
Indeed. Sure. Sure.
And then I made a concerted effort, meeting my husband and having children, that I was never going to expose my children to any of these traumas, you know, so that they're in this nice little bubble. There's nothing that can potentially cause mental health issues or concerns. And I went through it with my daughter. My daughter was diagnosed with an eating disorder. She was
Mm.
a self-harmer, so she would cut her arms.
Hmm.
And I just automatically thought, my gosh, I did everything in my power to not expose her to any trauma, yet she is going down the same pathway that I went down. But hers was completely different, that she was diagnosed with ADHD. And apparently, people that are potentially neurodivergent express their complexities externally. So she was expressing her difficulties externally with self harming and her disordered eating. So
Mm.
yeah, I've been through it from a child and from a parent. So
Yes.
yeah, and I think that's what's led me to work in mental health, because I feel I've got so much to give from lived experience as well as like as a healthcare professional. So
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the word neurodivergent. I've heard
yes.
that word before, and I think I spoke about it. But for you, can you tell me what that means and what the viewers, uh, what does neurodivergence mean for you?
So what it means is you get neurotypical. So neurotypical people, their brains function how brains are supposed to, so they can follow demands, they can follow recipes, programs, they can do normal things without the complexities of overthinking things or pieces missing. Whereas neurodivergent people have pieces missing, or they can't put the pieces of the puzzle together properly to do a normal routine. So you've got typical ones are autism or
Mhm.
ADHD, um, and they are very, even both in those two diversities, they process things completely different. So
Yeah.
in simple terms, autism thrive on routine,
Mm.
structure,
Hmm.
um, very, very sensory and like loud noises and things like that. Whereas ADHD people can be classed as being quite destructive, quite disruptive, like, you know, being the clown or just not following routine because they don't want to be told to follow a routine. So they're both
Yeah.
completely different ends.
And they don't listen either.
No, no. And they can be classed as like naughty, really naughty.
Right, right, right. But
So
actually, like you said, it's the processing is different.
yeah, they have something missing, that, and it's not that they're stupid or they're not
Hmm.
intelligent.
Hmm.
It's that if you're trying to give someone with ADHD some steps to follow, they can't put those steps together. Yet if you showed them how to do it, they would be able to do it. But reading it is very difficult to try and put the steps together.
Hmm.
Whereas you've got an autistic person that's very methodical, they could follow the routine and the structure
Right,
very well.
right.
So
But the thing is, they can't stir off the beaten path.
no, no, because if someone said to them, right, stop at step six, we're going to go out, we're going to run around, and then we're going to come back, they would not be able to do that because they
No,
need to get to step 10
right.
before they can think of doing anything else. So yeah,
Need to complete the process before they do
yeah,
anything. Got
yeah.
you. So, how's your relationship with your dad currently?
Unfortunately, we don't speak.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, yeah. He, I think because my sister has a very good relationship with him still. He now lives in the States, actually, funnily enough. So
Yeah.
she has a really good relationship with him. Um, I don't think she was exposed to as much as what I was. There's a 4 year age gap between us.
Okay.
Um, and I think when he came back from the war, she was a baby. So she wasn't really exposed to this. And then she was quite masked with all the things as she was growing up. However, I experienced quite a lot and I would challenge it. And my dad became quite verbally aggressive, like mentally, he would put me down all the time. He would make me feel worthless. He would do the same to my mum. And I think that left quite a dent on me, quite traumatized, I think. And I think because I haven't dealt with it's still there, still quite raw. Um, and I think we had a quite a lot of differences, and I think his way, he's quite to the extreme. We had a bit of a difference, and he just said, I love you. I don't want to hear or speak to you ever again. Have a nice life. And that was it. I haven't spoken to him again since. So yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Wow. That's crazy. I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
been a while ago now. I've sort of like, yeah, I think you learn to move on, don't you? Unfortunately,
Indeed,
I think where there
indeed.
are those differences, it's no point dwelling. It's you need to
Yeah.
make the most of what you have got.
You-
So
right, right.
yeah,
There's no choice in the matter.
no, no, definitely not. No. So
Either
yeah,
keep it moving or be stuck.
yeah, exactly. And I don't want to be stuck. I've got two wonderful children that I don't want to be stuck
Yeah,
for. So yeah, yeah,
indeed, indeed, indeed.
yeah.
Uh, Now we talked about mental illnesses that are related to food. Uh, are what are some methods that you know of that can help people understand the relationship between food and mental health? Because we just proved that
Mm,
it is a relationship. You
mm,
are what you eat or
mm,
what you don't eat.
yeah.
So how can we
I,
help people understand the relationship?
I think the best one to give a clear understanding is like binge eating disorder. Um, and that is, you can have people that can be, as they class, like, high BMI or low BMI. They can all have binge eating disorder, and it's like a coping mechanism for them. So if they've had all these traumas, it's like instead of turn into alcohol or turn into nicotine, they are turned into food as a coping mechanism. So if someone's been mentally abused or they've been bullied or harassed at work, they're going to go home and they're going to have a binging episode. And I think some people think that binging episode might be like two packets of crisps or chips, as you say, and two ice creams. And some people think, oh my God, I've overeaten. That's quite a lot. Whereas a binging episode could be um, a massive pizza, a tub
Mm,
of ice cream,
mm,
bags and bags of treats and sweets and candies, and then just keep going to the point that they don't know when to stop.
mm,
And then in that, it switches, and then there's that disgust, and then there's that self-destruct as such, like I'm disgusting, I've just eaten all that. And then they can go and vomit and purge, and like as you said before, expel it to try and make themselves feel better
yeah.
because they're not worthy of the food, or they don't do that and then they sit with that horrendous feeling. So it's very much, it's like a learned coping mechanism. And again, I think in comparison you could see that some people would drink a lot of alcohol, or some people might cause harm to their self.
Mm,
It's in the same category, it's just that these people are doing it with food.
mm. Okay. Okay. So what foods, in your opinion, can cause mood swings? Because we, like you talked about, the relationship between food and what you eat in particular, and how that affects your body
Mm,
and your mind, so to
mm.
speak. So, what foods can really trigger a mood swing?
There's quite a few in it. There's quite a lot of restriction as well. So a good example is if like people were doing like a keto diet, so they're cutting out carbs, and it starts as something simple that it's like, yeah, I'm going carb free. I'm going to try and shift this weight. Then
Yeah.
it becomes quite restrictive, and it's like they are so controlling. They initially feel amazing because they're cutting the carbs, they're then switching, their physical health is switching from burning glucose from the carbs to then burning fats. And what it is it's not making the individual as sluggish. It's they're feeling great. They're feeling on top of the world. But unfortunately, it's not sustainable. And after a couple of months, people are actually feeling low mood, low
Really?
energy, mm, to the point that months ago they could jump out of bed and they could
Yeah.
run around. Whereas in a couple of months down the line, they have got no energy. Their body is so compromised because they haven't got this glucose from this food to be able to process mentally and
Mm,
physically. So you need glucose for
mm,
mental cognition. If
mm-hmm,
you're not getting that, it's equivalent to like a starved brain. And then any simple processes, simple instructions, that individual can't do because they're fatigued, because they've not got the energy, their physical health's compromised, their weight's most probably dramatically dropped, to the point that their physical health can't keep up with it. And then their mental cognitions, everything seems so much more worse than what it would be. So to give you an example, say if you stubbed your toe or something, and normally if you were fine, you'd brush it off and you'd be like, yeah. Whereas if you did it when your mental cognitions are compromised, that pain would be so overwhelming that it would really make that person potentially lose their mood, become really irritable, really angry, and then it would like explode. And then that's when you tend to see the mood swings. So then that's that context. And then you've got another context. So, for example, with the binge eating disorder, if someone's leaning towards high energy, high fat, high sugar foods like pizza, candies, fizzy pop, that over
junk
time is going
food.
to, yeah, junk food, yeah. That is going to make someone feel so sluggish,
Uh-huh.
so compromised. And the way that I explain it is if you have like pizzas every night, if you think of the fat in that cheese going through your blood system, it's making everything really sluggish, like tar. Your body's trying to work overtime to break that down. And because it's trying to work overtime to break that down, something else has got to be compromised. And that
Mm,
is your energy levels. So then with that, that makes someone feel quite low. Their mood can dip, and then they tend to sleep more,
mm,
don't have the energy to get out of bed, which in turn can have a negative impact on the mood. And
mm-hmm.
then it's just that vicious cycle. And then I
Yeah.
think if someone's got mental health alongside that, that's just making it worse.
Oh my
So,
God.
but it's really hard to get out of that rut. And then it's like learned behaviors as well. It's like, I'm too tired. I can't cook. I just want to grab something quick. I'm going to grab the cold pizza that's in the fridge from the night before. And then it just keeps going on like that.
Hmm. So too much of a good thing is bad for you, and too much of a bad thing is bad for you.
Yeah, we can never win, can we?
So, God, so basically, there's got to be a balance, I guess.
Yeah. And it's, as dietitians would say, is everything in moderation. So have those treats, have that alcoholic beverage, have the carbs, but it's everything in moderation. If you're depriving yourself as well of these treats, you're going to want it more because it's always that, isn't it? I want what I can't have. Someone's told me I'm not allowed that, so I want that. So then that's when people tend to overeat on the sweet treats.
Hmm. Wow. So, are there any foods that a person with mental illness should avoid altogether?
No. And I think whether someone has got mental illness or great physical health, everyone should be eating the same. And it depends on your body composition and like how looking at the bigger picture as such. So how dietitians work is we look at the bigger picture. So if someone came into my clinic with mental health, sluggish fatigue symptoms, I would look at the background history. I would look at how they've got to this point. I would look at bloods so we can interpret bloods. We can look at medications so we can see whether there's any medications that are potentially not supporting them as efficiently as it should. And then we look at what they're eating. So, for example, if someone's skipping breakfast because they can't get out of bed or they're just, that's the norm, they don't have breakfast. And then by the time mid-morning comes, they're really hungry because they haven't had breakfast. They automatically go for that high energy, high fat, high sugar foods. That's going to really, really set them off badly for the day. So it's having something from each food group. And what we say is as long as you have something from carbohydrates, fats, proteins, um, your fruits and vegetables, fiber, that whole composition is what's going to support great physical health and also support the mental health as well.
Yeah. So, okay. So, and your the work that you do, this is private practice, I'm assuming, or no?
Yeah, so I used to work in our National Health Service. And I think, I don't know whether you guys have heard or seen in the news, it's quite compromised. There's long waits, there's
Mm.
quality of care is being compromised because we're being asked to deliver care in like a 10-minute consultation. And for me, that was quite frustrating. So, yeah, in October, I decided to leave the National Health Service and set up private practice. So, yeah, and now I'm giving more time to these individuals to be able to support them.
Hmm. Cool. Do you have any and this is just a curious question. Do you have any uh interesting stories or nightmare stories about your adventures as a dietitian that you could share?
Gosh, I've never been asked that before. I think actually, so the way that we work is when we qualify and we leave university, we start at a low grade. And I retrained as a mature student, so I didn't graduate until I was 41. So I went back when my kids started school. So I remember being put on a ward, and there was actually a young girl that had an eating disorder. And I thought, yeah, I can do this. This is really good. Not thinking about the whole mental health side of it. And I went up to this girl and I said, why don't you just eat? What's the problem? You know, just eat. Why don't you just have something? And she just looked at me with complete shock, as if to say, are you really asking me to have something to eat? And that really sticks with me because now that I work in mental health, I'm just like, God, why? That girl must have really thought, what is this person talking about? Does she really think that she's like gonna get me to eat? And it was just, yeah, it was a bit of an eye opener to be fair. I think newly qualified, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get this person to eat. And I failed badly.
Wow, wow. Uh, you know, with people that are anorexic, is it harder to, here's a question, is it harder to work with people that are bulimic or anorexic?
Anorexic.
Mm.
It's the easiest way to explain it, and this is my years of learning, is I've worked a lot with therapists, like psychologists, psychiatrists, and I'm also doing a master's in psychology now to complement my dietetics because of this work that I've done. When you work with someone that has anorexia nervosa, the easiest way to explain it is you have the individual there, and it's like you have a good angel and a devil sitting on your
Hmm.
shoulders.
Hmm.
The devil is the eating disorder and it's feeding all negative. And then the other side is potentially like the parent or the healthcare professional. So
Hmm.
the way that we say it is the healthcare professional or the parent saying, come on, you need to eat. You're going to be really, really unwell, potentially needing to be admitted to hospital. then you've got the devil, the eating disorder, saying they're lying to you. They're lying. They're just trying to make you feel bad. But what you're doing is you're doing really, really good and you're succeeding. And if you have something to eat, you're going to fail and it's not going to be good. So the best way to explain it is those two, like the devil and the angel. And that is how we get people, parents, to understand what that individual is actually dealing with. And it's the negative mindset that they are putting this individual down. They're putting him down to make themselves feel so worthless that they don't deserve anything. And all the time they're restricting, they're succeeding.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. Because again, I I don't have any knowledge about either,
Mm,
but it's always interested. I mean, I've always had an interest in it because these are emotionally driven
yes. Yeah.
disorders, or
Yeah.
and both can kill you.
Yes, most definitely. And I think, like as you say, you said before, like you've never actually met someone with an eating disorder. I think what we're tending to see here in the UK is that it's increasing. There are so many people that have it, but you don't tend to know that they have it until they're physically compromised. When
Hmm.
you, like with anorexia nervosa, when you see them, when you
Yeah.
see the skeletal
Skin
frame,
and yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, they could have been living with that for like 5, 10 years before they got to that point. And again, it's that you might have spoken to someone that had it, but because they didn't visually display with those physical symptoms, it's
Hmm.
very hard. It's not one of those ones that people are going to go to a party and say, oh, by the way, I've got anorexia nervosa, you know. Whereas if there's other physical problems, some people are quite upfront, aren't they? But with eating disorders, they are very sheltered, very inert. Um, they do not express themselves at all.
Wow. Yeah. I'm just taking it all in because it's, I'm learning some things today
Mm,
about this. Uh, and I think people we don't even think about the link between food and our mental health.
no.
I mean, we don't pay, we know that certain foods aren't good for us.
Yeah.
We know that certain foods can attribute to other physical ailments,
Yeah. Yeah.
but when you talk about mental health issues or how certain foods can create a spike
Mm,
in certain behaviors,
mm,
we don't
yeah.
think about that because we're not taught,
No, no.
we're not
Uh,
educated.
No, definitely. And I think it's been a real eye opener for me. And I think even working with individuals that have psychosis, or EUPD, like split personality disorder, the medications that they have to have. So again, a lot of mental health is treated with medication, isn't it? The medications that they have raise their appetite so much that then they continue to eat and they can't stop eating. So
Mm,
then again, it's looking at that they're being treated with the appropriate medication to support their mental health, but it's leading them to have excessive weight gain because the side effects of the medication are causing them to overeat. So then it's that aspect of it as well.
mm.
It's such a big topic, isn't it? I think you could, and when I speak to people, you could talk for hours. It's just, this is just like the icing on the cake. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's a minefield. And I'm always learning all the time of different characteristics, different symptoms. And I think with healthcare, it's always evolving. There's always someone doing research and someone studying that they develop and they find new symptoms, new mechanisms, new coping strategies. So it's constantly evolving.
Mm. Wow. So, Lisa, what's next for you in regards of helping those that are dealing with mental health issues and food issues in particular?
So as I said, I'm I started my master's in February in psychology, and I think dietitians are very clinical. We're very much like we'll go to someone in their hospital bed and we'll be like, you need to eat this, you need to do this, and it's very clinical and very direct. Yet when you look at eating disorders, that approach does not work. And when I worked with therapists, where they have that, it's hard to explain, that approach of like asking the appropriate questions to be able to get a more in-depth answer. When I
Mhm.
worked alongside these clinicians, I was like, this is amazing because it's given me so much more. Because me being a dietitian going into a room with an anorexic and asking them questions, they're automatically going to shut down because they're like, she's going to try and make me eat. So I am not letting her in. I'm not going to speak to her. Yet when I worked with a therapist, the way that they went about, like how they read the room, how they asked the questions, we were getting so much more, which led me to do my master's to be able to support people in like a more holistic therapeutic approach and looking at the bigger picture rather than just the diagnosis. Like, as you said, how did they get to this point?
Right.
Because they're not just going to have got here one day and said, I'm not eating no more. There's got to be so many things that have led them to this.
Yeah, there's a root, there's a root cause to
Yes.
what we're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is what we have to focus on.
Yes.
Why I'm
100%.
harping a
Yeah.
lot more on the mental health aspect of
Yes.
it and not necessarily the relation to food, because
Yeah.
I mean, because of what traumas people, face and endure, yeah, that might lead you to say, well, I'm fat.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
Mm,
stop eating.
yeah.
Like you said,
Yeah.
your dad, he put you through a lot of verbal
Mm,
abuse, and
mm,
not really lifting you up as a daughter, you know,
mm.
and I'm thankful that you didn't take that road,
I know. I know.
because you could have.
I could have so
You could
easily
have.
have done. I could have done. And I think I made a vow to myself that I would never ever go down that same route. Never ever. I saw what my mum and my sister went through, and I was just like, I need to change this. I need to change. And I think thankfully I've got the strength to be able to do it. But unfortunately, some people don't, and they
What did they
just
go through?
what, my mum and my sister?
Yes.
So my dad would, when he used to take his overdoses, he used to do that when I wasn't in the country. So because he knew that they were more vulnerable than myself, he would do all these like take overdoses. I think he went to a psychiatrist and he had a knife in his coat, threatening them. So he
Wow.
would do all this when I wasn't around because I was the one that was strong enough to challenge him.
Yes.
And because they were weak and they wouldn't, that's really mean to say, actually, not weak. They were, I think they were just so traumatized by it, or they didn't know how to. They didn't challenge him. And so
Hmm.
he saw that as his opportunity to do it.
Hmm.
Um, and I think my mum and dad always rowed. Me and my sister would sit on the bottom step waiting for my mum to come in, and she would be gone for like 4 hours at a time because she was always leaving because she couldn't put up with how my dad was to her. And I vowed that I would never ever expose my children to any of that. It's been hard, but yeah, yeah, it was very traumatic, very traumatic. And I think I've blocked a lot of it out. I think that's my way of dealing with things.
Hmm.
The way I
Hmm.
explain it
Hmm.
is I put it in a little black box and it's tucked away
Hmm.
somewhere.
And you said something, right there. What you said is what a lot of people do. They block it.
Mm, yeah,
That's their natural mechanism.
yeah,
They just put up, they block it.
yeah.
You know.
And it's like an automatic thing, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
you don't sit there and you say, I'm going to block that out because that I don't
Right.
like that. It just
Right.
goes, doesn't it?
Right.
It's
Right.
just
Right. Because
yeah,
we don't like it.
no,
It's a sucky feeling, and I don't want to feel sucky anymore. So, in
yeah,
order for me to do it, I have to put something in between
mm,
my true feelings and that.
mm, mm,
I got to put a barrier there.
yeah. And I was very good at putting barriers up, and I was always the class clown. I was naughty, and that's how I deferred people from actually seeing what I was struggling with because
Hmm.
I would always be trying to make people laugh and and messing around and playing
Yeah.
around as a distraction.
Right.
So, mm,
Mm. What you just said, I think that spoke for a lot of people. I really, I
yeah,
really do
yeah.
think that what you just said, it should resonate to a lot of people because
Mm,
I think a lot of people walked in your shoes
yeah.
and they distracted not just
Mm,
themselves, but
yeah.
they distracted everybody
Others.
else from knowing who the real Lisa
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
But
definitely.
the crazy thing about barriers though, Lisa, is that sometimes they fall down.
Mm,
And we have
yeah.
to look at those,
Mm,
we have to look at the stuff that we blocked.
yeah, yeah. And I think the longer you block it out for, the bigger it gets each time it rises, doesn't it? It's
Yeah,
just, yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's why I've gone into mental health. I always said from a young age, I want to help people. And eating disorders, it always drew me to it, but then I never actually went into it straight away. And I think that's my way of coping with my potentially own struggles is helping other people because I've got that lived experience. I think I can resonate with them and I can actually see if there's ways to support them because I can empathize and I can see what they're going through.
Mhm, mhm. Wow. Uh, so basically, you're more empathic to
Mm,
what they are going through because you lived it.
yeah. And I think something that's always stuck with me is a lot of people, when I do sort of open up and say, I'll only give little snippets, they say, but you always seem so happy. I could never imagine that you could have gone through this.
Little do they know.
I know. And it's a front, isn't it? It's like you
Yeah,
become
yeah,
an actor,
yeah,
isn't it? It's like
yeah,
because the second someone starts asking you, you're like, don't even go there because I
yeah.
don't want to visit that. So let's keep being the jolly, happy person that we've
Exactly.
worked hard to be. So
Yeah, and then when you go home, you can cry to
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, 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 definitely. Or be miserable and turn that
Yeah,
frown upside
yeah.
down. Yeah,
Or
yeah,
you take it on your sister.
yeah. Or my husband.
Or yeah, I mean, you just take it on everybody else, but when you're outside, it's like, oh hey,
Yes. Yeah, I know. The second you walk out the door, it's like we're going to the Oscars or
saying hi to your
something.
neighbors, and off- offering them more the grass, and
Yeah.
this super happy-go-lucky person
Mm,
again inside like life sucks.
I know. But unless people have been through that, they they don't know how that works, do they?
No, 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 no. But that's why we need people like yourself to really let people know that. And this is something that I always say: it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's part of the human,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Very unfortunate, but millions of people go through
Mm,
this.
mm,
We have our barriers. We have our masks. We wear masks.
yeah. Yeah.
Some people have multiple masks
Yeah.
and they wear them well.
Mm,
You would never
definitely.
know that your neighbor is going through some things, or you would never know that your sister or your mom is
Mm,
going through A, B, and C, but all you know is D, E, F, and G.
mm, yeah.
You understand? There may be more layers
Mm,
to this
yeah.
cake that we don't see.
Mm, yeah.
And that's the thing about dealing with the root.
Mm, I
We
agree.
have to we talk about what we see,
Mm,
but we don't talk about the root,
mm,
the
yeah.
foundation. We have to get
Mm,
there.
mm,
We have to get there.
mm.
And until we start really focusing on that, all this stuff is just superficial. This
Yeah.
is just fluff,
Mm. That's
right?
the distraction from the
Yeah, we
cause.
deal with the distract, right,
Yeah.
right. But we got to deal with the root.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because you could have all these interventions, like healthcare interventions, put in place, but this person could keep going back to their learnt behaviors and their coping strategies because no one's ever dealt with that root cause.
Yeah.
And because they're so used to the way that a lot of people practice, they know that no one's ever going to look at that root cause or go to that root cause, because a lot of people tend to treat the symptoms, the external factors.
Mm-hmm. We do. We do. Lisa, how can people contact you?
So I have a website. It's www.precisiondietetics.co.uk, or I'm on Instagram at Precision Dietetics.
Say that one more time. Can you spell that for me? Because I'm going to put that.
PRECISION
Uh-huh. Okay.
Dietetics. Can you spell dietetics? A lot of people can't.
I'll give it a shot.
Go for it.
uh, funny, funny. Lisa Poole, it has been a pleasure taking the time to speak with you about this particular topic. I've learned a great deal of info about the relation between what we eat and how it affects our mental health, because there definitely is a correlation there. And as I said a few minutes ago, we have to look further and look more into the root instead of looking into the superficial.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I agree.
So
I
with
do
that
agree.
being said, I hope that you do that as well when you're talking with your people, because they need it. I mean, they need people like you and you and I to speak what we're speaking on and speaking truth to power. And
Yes,
if nothing
definitely.
changes, if nothing changes, then nothing changes, right?
No, no. They just keep building on those negative feelings and behaviors, and then it just gets escalates to, unfortunately, sometimes death. So yeah, yeah, it really needs to look at, as you say, the root cause and other external factors.
Indeed, indeed. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. Lisa, it has been great again speaking with you, and thank you so much for making this happen, because,
Mm.
ladies and gentlemen, this almost didn't happen.
We
I
got
had to
there.
reach out to her. Can you please come and talk to me? No. Oh, gosh.
We got that. And it's been such a pleasure. It's been really good. Really lovely speaking to you.
Likewise. And as I always say, ladies and gentlemen, and I will keep saying this, it is okay to not be okay. Just do something about it.
Yeah,
Just do something about it.
definitely.
Lisa, you have a good rest of your day.
And you, Mark. Thank you so
Everybody,
much.
thank you. And everybody, let's have a good rest of your day as well. I look forward to having another conversation with you at some time in the near future to catch up with you and see how your
Definitely.
master's degree program is going. So
Definitely. Yeah, it'd be
yeah,
great. I'll look
yeah.
forward to it.
I want to hear some more horror stories too.
Yeah. I'll try and pull them out of my little
There
box.
there you go. There you go. So when we have another conversation, let's talk about some more horror stories.
Let's do that. I'll
All
look
right.
forward to it.
Yes, ma'am. Have a
Take
good one.
care. And
All right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.